Alright, what is up, boys and girls? Funny that was on the screen. I've been unexpectedly absent the last 5 or 6 days. Been working, watching some football on the weekends. Been tired. I don't know. I've been working a lot and all that jazz. So, school starts in about a week. So things will get a little bit more crazy in the next coming weeks. But, thanks for sticking by. So, my good buddy on MTGO, Ghost of Oblivion, he, uh, he let me borrow the deck, or not borrow. He actually donated me this Derevi Empyrial Tactician Commander Pre-constructed deck. That's just because he's a good guy, and I didn't ask for it. He just volunteered to do it because I guess he wanted to see some Derevi stuff. So I'm going to kind of start out with the pre-con, see what I like from it, what works, what doesn't work. So I'm going to talk about that, and kind of like what I did with Jaleva. And so far, this deck is a little frustrating. It doesn't have a lot of late game. It kind of just has small guys, and once your opponent has a blocker of any kind, then it gets really stalled out because you have to like basically sacrifice guys to get in, and you don't have. There's not a lot of removal in this deck, unfortunately. So let's look at it. Soul Ring, obviously, is only one drop, so we've got Celestial Signet, Simic Signet. There's no Azorius Signet, which is interesting, because there is a heavy blue requirement. There is triple blue cards, and there's triple bluish here, and I'm kind of wondering why they included these two and not the blue Signet, but I mean the blue-white one. But anyways, that's what they did. Surveyor Scope. This card is a really bad in 1v1. You basically, this is a new commander card. You have to exile this, search your library for up to X basic lands, where X is the number of players who control at least 2 more lands than you. Put those cards in the battlefield. So this card's only going to be good if you're pretty far behind. I mean, if someone mono green ramp, even in 1v1, if mono green ramp has 2 lands ahead of you, you just get 1 land because there's only 1 player. Maybe in 4 player it can be pretty decent because you can get up to like 6 lands, I think. Or you get 9. Wait, 1, 2, 3. You get 9 lands? No. You just get 3. You just get 3 lands. What am I talking about? That's all. I'm not a fan of this card. You'd rather just run a Rampant Growth or Farseek or something. It's just not a good card. Swiftfoot Boots. It's okay in this deck. I think this deck would just be better with Greaves, because, I mean, as it is, there's a very few enchantments, so Swiftfoot Boots isn't very good. Restore. That's an interesting card they printed for this product. You have to put a land on the graveyard onto the battlefield. So there's 2 cycling. What is going on? 2 cycling land. No, just 1. There's only secluded steps, so an evolving wilds and a Bant Panorama and a Terramorphic. Okay, so there's 4 lands that go with it. I've been able to use it once, but generally I was not excited to see it. This could be probably pretty sweet in like a Dredge Loam deck, but as it is, not that exciting. I mean, it does help if you get Strip Mined or something. Arcane Denial, so this is like the one counterspell that I think that's in the deck, and it's just not the best because you're giving your opponents 2 cards, even though you're countering their spell. Not ideal, but there are reasons to play this card. I don't think this is one of them. I think this would be better like a Nekusar deck because you want your opponents to draw cards. Not in this deck. Selesnya Charm, haven't actually cast this yet in this deck. It seems fine. It is a way to get rid of big creatures, and it does get your guys through with Trample, and Trample's relevant when you have Derevi in play. Darksteel Mutation. Oh, I didn't even talk about Derevi. So let's look at Derevi. That was kind of bad. So Derevi is a Bant General, green, white, blue, flying 2/3 Bird Wizard. And whenever this enters the battlefield or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent, and you can also pay 1 green, white, blue to just put them onto the command zone. So if you pay 1 extra mana, there it cannot be countered unless you stifle it, and even then you can just do it again next turn. So it's nice it has this flash effect that you can cast it, sort of cast it, or put it on the battlefield instant speed from the command zone. Can't be countered, and it has a nice little like tap or untap effect, which is pretty nice. Alright. So the goal of the deck is kind of to abuse this tap or untap ability, but this deck doesn't really do a good job of that. So we have Darksteel Mutation, another new card. So basically just make a creature into an 0/1 artifact creature with indestructible and loses all abilities, card types, and creature types. And it's kind of a way to deal with commanders that are problematic. Not the best play, but it's a new card they printed in Flicker form. There really aren't any enchantments in the deck. that are really worth flicker forming with. I guess it's more confusing with Derevi as flickering him and maybe tapping permanents, but even then it's kind of a lackluster card in my experience with this deck. Hottest Spy Patrols, so it's just making an unblockable guy, so you can use the tap and untap ability. Tusk Color is pretty sweet when you're untapping it, because you can put a bunch of elephants onto the battlefield. I like this card. This is actually a pretty good card in the deck. Miss Meadow Witch is pretty nice. The problem with Miss Meadow Witch is there are not a lot of enter the battlefield creatures. For some reason, they don't even include like a Muldrifter in this deck, which is really strange considering there's a Blink Commander in the deck. Selesnya Guildmage, so puts 1/1 green Saprolings and gives your guys +1/+1. Not been impressed with him. Azorius Keyrune. So this is okay because it gives you a 2/2 guy that you can attack with, and it's a bird, so the guy as commander is a bird. The Monolith helps you get to the high end, which there isn't a ton of. Darksteel Ingot, which is fine. It's good because there is a Bane of Progress in this deck, which destroys all artifacts and enchantments, and obviously having it indestructible is nice. The Blade Trap, I've not been impressed with this card. It's kind of a weak card, and you're paying 5 mana to have 2 damage to each attacking creature without flying. Hold on one moment. Alright, so we were on the trap. It's a trap card. I would not play this. Anyways, Pilgrim's Eye. So Pilgrim's Eye is okay because it gives you a 1/1 flyer and it gives you a land, which is not terrible in a 3-color deck with bad mana because there's a ton of basics in it. And it can be blinked with the blink effect, creatures, 1,000-Year Elixir. So I think 1,000-Year Elixir is destined more for Rubinia, and there are, obviously the deck has an untapped tap theme. There are some enchantments that get cool when you untap them, and there's a Vantuko Shaman, or Phantom Nantuko, which is right here. I'll skip to it. This is actually a pretty good card. I've been kind of impressed with it, with Derevi and just in general. So when it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counter, so it's a 2/2, and then if damage would be dealt to this, prevent the damage, remove a +1/+1 counter, and you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter. So with Derevi effects, you can stack the triggers, and you can potentially put multiple +1/+1 counters on him, and also he has trample, so he can be tough to block once he gets bigger. It obviously doesn't stop him from getting Doombladed or anything, but he's actually a nice card. Probably see him around eventually once people start playing with him more. Alright, so Thunderstaff. As long as this is untapped, a creature would deal common damage to you, prevent 1 of that damage. This is good against like token swarms. You can give attacking creatures get +1/+0. Deck is pretty mana heavy most of the time. I mean, this is pretty good with Derevi, I guess, because you can use your mana and then untap the mana and then use it after your combat, but kind of a weak card overall. And then borrowing 1,000 arrows, draw a card for each tapped creature target opponent controls. So this is a little bit of a weird one because it's a sorcery, so you either need your opponent to be attacking you, or you need them to have all basic ground creatures for you to fly over and then attack them and tap them and then draw cards. So it's kind of awkward because if they have flyers, you can't tap them without attacking, and most of your flyers are pretty small. And I think this card's kind of weak. It does have sweet art, and it is kind of a sweet card in general, but not very good. Crossing Grip, very good card. Split Second is nice, and destroying an artifact or enchantment for the additional cost of 1 colorless versus a naturalize is very nice. And this card is pretty weak. This is also in the Jaleva deck, so whenever a player attacks enchanted player with 1 or more creatures, excuse me. Oh, sorry. The other reason I haven't been uploading videos, I haven't been feeling well lately. Alright, Curse of Inertia. So you basically get to tap or tap a target permanent of their choice whenever a creature attacks an opponent. So it works for your opponents when they attack opponents. I think the effect is too weak. It's very weak. I would not play this card for the most part, unless you have very, very sweet things to do with it. Curse of Predation. So this is actually better because it gives you guys +1/+1 counters as they attack. So it's kind of like that that Boros enchantment. I forgot what it's called. It's from Ravnica Block, their most recent one. Like it puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacks. This one's nice, but I don't know, the deck doesn't have much synergy with it. Plus, if you're blinking your guys, you don't really want to blink guys with +1 counters on them. And then this card is pretty awful. Whenever a creature attacks Enchanted player, its controller gains 1 life. Not very good. Presence of Gone. So this one's not bad if you have on Derevi, because at least if you put on Derevi, there's the downside of getting it killed is a lot less. But a 3-mana enchantment that just puts a 1/1 green elf. It's not even like a Llanowar elf. It's just a 1/1. Not very exciting. Deceiver Exarch. So it's a 1/4. There's no combos with it in the deck. I mean, Deceiver Exarch, you know what it does. Taps or untaps target permanent. It's flash. It's kind of nice with the deck, but low impact card. And then we have Fairhaven Elf, which ramps your mana. It's a 1/1, a possible attacker / jump blocker. Fiend Hunter, so this is alright, gets guys out of the way. I guess it's good if you're blinking, because you can blink this as the trigger is stacked and get rid of the creature forever. If you don't know, whenever this enters the battlefield, exile a creature, but when it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card under that opponent's control. So if he leaves the battlefield before the first trigger resolves, then that creature is gone forever, which is going to be nice with cards like Rune and then Mist Meadow Witch if you have that kind of mana. Problem is, it's very mana intensive. Then Phantom Mantuka, we talked about. Stormcloaker I've not actually been able to play with. Never just came up, even though I've played with this deck quite a bit so far. But he's a flash. Jeez, what's all these interruptions today? Alright, so that was my family from Florida. So Stormcloaker, a little bit of exiling from graveyards. Really slow way to do it if you want to do that, or you can save creatures with it. It's a 3/2 for 3. It's a flyer. Kind of sweet. And Thornwind Fair is pretty good with untapping. It's kind of weak, though. If you can make it work, you can kill some elves and things. And also you can kill bigger creatures if you get to attack. And it is like a free attack if it gets through, because you just attack and then you can untap it if you want. And then Winged Coatl, so Flash, Flying, Death Touch 1/1. It's kind of like an Ambush Viper before Ambush Viper was printed. Not that exciting, but it's a source of removal that this deck very, very, very much needs. So this, as long as a creature is tapped, tap creatures you control get +2/+, so as long as the creature is untapped. So this is a little bit of an awkward card. I'm sure there's some kind of combo with it. Not very exciting. I'll probably cut this card. It's pretty expensive and doesn't do a lot. And Washout, return all permanents of the color of your own choice. So there's one here. This would be better if it was an instant, and it's not. This would be better in my Urtai deck, because sometimes Urtai deck just really, really struggles once it gets behind on the board, and this is the way to deal with them. But in this deck, not that exciting. And then this card is weird. Infamous Touch. I've seen it before, but I never played with it. And so far, I've had it miss a few times. Basically, you reveal the top 4 cards of your library, you put a creature from among them onto the battlefield. It has, at the beginning of your end step, return this creature to its owner's hand. So you can kind of flash in a creature and block with it, or flash down their end step and then attack with it, and then it becomes bounce. So it's okay with like the end of the battlefield creatures, which aren't too many. Overall, not an exciting card. Control Magic, one of the better cards. I just have never been able to cast it so far. Angel of Finality, one of the new commander cards. Enters the battlefield, exile all cards and powers by the graveyard. It's a 3/4 for 4, so I mean it's gonna be a decent card, and people in Flying Angel decks will probably like to have this. It's not bad. Dungeon Geists, actually one of the better cards in the deck. 3/3, tap a creature. It stays tapped for as long as you control Dungeon Geists. Illusion, Scholar General. So it's a Thieving Magpie. Instead of having flying, it has Horsemanship, which is usually better because there are very, very few cards with Horsemanship. So all you need to, in order to block this creature, you have to have Horsemanship. So Wonder. And, I mean, you could take it the Wonder direction. Most of the creatures have flying, but this helps you have flying as long as this thing's in the graveyard. Conjurer's Closet, so more of the blink theme with the Rune. Most of the Derevi decks don't really care about Conjurer's Closet, because, you know, blinking Derevi at the end of your own turn and tapping, or unless you're tapping a permanent that matters, tapping one of theirs doesn't do anything. And then Leaf Drake Roost. So this is pretty cool if you can get a bunch of untap effects with this, but other than that, I mean, it's a nice card, but you're kind of leaving yourself to get blown out by Acidic Slimes or Strep Mines or Wastelands or something like that. Speaking of Acidic Slime, here's Acidic Slime. So one of the ways to remove artifacts, enchantments, and lands, and it's a good blocker and it's a good blink target. You probably won't make many friends if you start blinking Acidic Slime, but you know, you can. Airy Mystic, so it's a bird, it's a Bant bird, so it fits with the theme. And you can give your creature Shroud, which is kind of nice. It's a 3/3 for 5, so it's kind of slow and not very powerful, but it's in the deck. A zombie. Zombie's pretty cool when you're tapping wizards. Your commander is a wizard, a zombie is a wizard, so you can draw multiple cards a turn, which is pretty nice, but other than that, you could probably leave her in the deck if you altered it. Diviner's Spirit, so you can draw 2 cards and give the opponent you're killing 2 cards. Not the best, but it can be more of a political card. You probably want this more in the Nekusar deck, less in this deck. Karmic Guide, awesome card. Obviously, in Reanimator decks, this shines. This deck, not so much, because most of the cards you'd be returning aren't very big. But it does have protection from black, which could be relevant. Mercfield Leech, so it's kind of like a... excuse me. You get to untap your blue and green creatures, and you pump your guys. So I like this card a lot, because it makes Derevi a 4 or 5, so that's pretty nice, because he's a blue and a green creature. So Rune of the Hidden Realm, one of the commanders you could possibly play. Obviously, Vigilance, Trample, exile another target creature, return it to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So you get to basically Flicker Wisp your creatures or your opponent's creatures, so you can get rid of creatures out of the way, or you can exile tokens. And he has Vigilance, and he's 4/4, so he's not very small. I think he's probably the better for this build of the deck. If you were just to switch commanders, he'd probably be better. For the most part, maybe not. But he's kind of cool. I might check him out at some point. And then Rubinia Soulsinger, new art. And you may choose not to untap Rubinia. She gets a little bit awkward with the Mercfield Leech because you have to untap it. So you have to basically just use it again. But it gets basically mind control creatures as long as you control her and she remains tapped. Alright. So Katar's Wrath. I think this is the new one, right? I've never seen this card before. Destroy all creatures, can't be regenerated. It's Wrath of God, costs 2 extra, but threshold, 7 or more cards in your engraver. You get to put 2 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying to the battlefield. So, I'd rather have Wrath of God, but, it's interesting. It's a different take on Wrath. And then Tempt with Glory is 6 mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This card seems really bad. You just never really have a swarm of guys for the most part, and it's 6 mana. I don't know why they made this card so expensive. It seems really strange to me. Bane of Progress, so the fun police card. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments, put a +1/+1 counter. He's not the best in this deck because you tend to run a lot of, you have a lot of artifacts and there are a lot of enchantments. And there's not really many ways to give them indestructible besides the Dark Sealing it. But there it is. Watch out for this card in the upcoming Commander games. Djinn of Infinite Deceits. So the one time I got to play with this card, my opponent had the land that gives you your control of your creatures back. A Homeward Path. I was like, are you serious? The one time I get to cast this guy, he would have been pretty good actually, but nope. My opponent had Homeward Path, so he was pretty much rendered bad. But he's going to be pretty cool in multiplayer formats because you can do some political things by swapping around guys. You just can't do it during combat, so that's a problem. He's a 2/7. He's got a big butt. And then Skyward Eye Prophet. I think this is a new card as well. So Vigilance, 3/3. The card is so weird, though. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So when you have untapping effects like your Derevi triggers and that 1,000-Year Elixir, he'll be pretty cool. I think this guy will be pretty cool with like Rune and like make more of an untap and blink effect deck, and be pretty nice. I got to play with him a little bit, but the problem is the deck has a very little top end, so you're just kind of drawing into more like dirtily guys, and it's not the best. And then we have Blue Sun Zenith to draw cards, and then we have Unexpectedly Absent, which has been unexpectedly, well, I guess it's been expectedly not that great. The whole idea was making a legacy playable card where you can basically, if someone shuffles, makes a shuffle effect, you can get rid of a permanent, but other than that, it's just like, you'd rather just have, I don't know, Swords Plowshares. So it's very little removal in this deck, and then we've got some Guild Gates, some Bounce Lands, a Storage Land, Enter the Battlefield Life Gain Land. There you go. And then you have the Opal Palace, which is better in this deck than it is in Jalova. And Fairy Conclave, which is alright. And the one Secluded Step. I wonder why it's the white land. Seems weird. But yeah, that's the deck. Stay tuned for some games. Sorry this took so long, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.